going on, everybody? Hello again and welcome back to another episode of the Welch Report with me, Jean-Luc Welch. Make some noise and clap it up. Get excited wherever you are, whether you're at your job, in your car, or wherever the case may be. I'm here to be your guide as we peruse through the world and all the happenings of the sports ecosystem. We got stuff to talk about, in the world of the NBA, in the world of the boxing as well, and so much more on this show. So again, thank you for taking time out to listen to what I got to say and just to be entertained by everything that we have right here on the Welch Report. And without further ado, again, what to do, leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with everybody that you know so we can keep on building up this empire of a channel. Together, we're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. Yes, sir. We are making moves, we're making waves, and it's all thanks to the support that you all have brought to this community and to this channel, and I appreciate it so much. But with all that aside, let's jump into the world of sports. And first and foremost, we're not going to cover boxing first off. We got to cover the world of the NBA because, my goodness, when it comes to basketball, we have had a bunch of unfoldings as the regular season is winding down. Playoff race is really starting to ramp up, and specifically with the Los Angeles Lakers out west, they have shown so many different facets of who they are and what they are. And at every single waking turn, we're continually changing the narrative of what this basketball team can actually do, because of what we saw last night with them having an incredible win against the Bucks, a double overtime thriller, coming back from down 19 in the game against one of the best teams in the league in the Milwaukee Bucks. They somehow pulled it out without LeBron, when it seemed like all things were just on a downward spiral. Another loss for the Los Angeles Lakers, again losing to a top team, again looking dysfunctional. That's what this all looked like. Lo and behold, next thing you know, all of a sudden they turned it around. Again, we see D'Lo have a 44-point performance. Austin Reeves have 29 points in the game, have a career night, a triple-double on the night. Rui Hachimura played phenomenal. Anthony Davis, 33 and 23? About in terms of 33 points, 23 rebounds, played 52 minutes, all of a sudden shaking off any allegations this brother has not been available. Again, he's been proving this season, this is the most durable we've seen him be in a mighty long time in his career. This all looks to say, hey, maybe we do need to give the Lakers some legitimate credit and legitimate credence to be something serious in the world of the NBA, because understand this, when it comes to the NBA landscape, yes, the Lakers have always been touted as one of the darling teams of the league. They're always talked about, for better or for worse, consistently, good, bad, or otherwise. Always somebody has to say something about Los Angeles because they're a big market team. They bring money. They bring eyes and listeners to whoever's talking about it. Understandable. But it oftentimes has been in light of them, even though they're being talked about dominantly. Most of the time it's unwarranted because they just are continuing to flounder or falter or fall below expectations, and that we shouldn't be talking about them as much, but we are. But of recent now, the talking point for the Los Angeles Lakers have been justified, and I'm guilty of it too, because I talked about the Los Angeles Lakers on this show. Absolutely. Again, big name market, like I just said. Of course, one of the most potent and most viral teams in the league. So of course, a lot of the brunt of the news ecosystems are going to be surrounding them. Understandable. I try to give my credence to all the other teams that are available, but inevitably we have to go back to this team. But it's very interesting because now there's some real validity and some substance to this team now. Because as of recent, they've been going on some pretty decent runs. They've had multiple Game of the Year candidates against legitimately good teams. Again, regardless of the Clippers' collapse of recent, at that point in time when the Lakers faced off against the Clippers, and they again came back from 19 or 20 plus to win that game, and again doing it against the Bucks last night, and I believe they did it again this season. About 3 or 4 times they came back from what seemed like an insurmountable lead. This team keeps giving us glimpses into the future that could potentially be what this Los Angeles Lakers team can achieve ultimately, which is they can compete with anybody in the West, and they should be one of the biggest threats in the West, or just in the entire league as a whole. Again, they've started to hit their stride ever since they got to 500, which was almost seemingly not possible early on in the year. Now they're 40 and 32. At this point in time, if they had the same record last season, they'd be about 5th or 4th in the West. With the West being as stacked as it is right now. So they're legitimately making waves, and they're winning, again, without LeBron, against one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, nay, the entirety of the NBA, though they have been playing at a subpar level compared to what we were expecting of the Milwaukee Bucks, with them having Dame and Giannis, Dame not having as stellar of a season as we would want from somebody of his caliber, and the Bucks as a whole defensively not being where they should be. And Doc Rivers, again, showing that he can do what Doc Rivers does at any given point in time, or with any team in the season, which is mess them up. So all that is going for, in terms of the Lakers in this game, all that was going for them. Bucks couldn't stop a cold at points in time. Lakers couldn't stop a cold either. Then both teams looked dominant at stints, and at other times, both of them looked terrible. It's just what's going on. But it shouldn't be with the Bucks versus the Lakers squad, especially without a LeBron, that we even see a 19-point lead diminish with them, let alone they lose in double overtime. That's a whole nother conversation with the Milwaukee Bucks, and how there's continually more and more regret for getting Doc Rivers on this squad. But beyond that, going back to the Lakers, this is a Lakers squad that should be able to compete with anybody. Even the Denver Nuggets, who seem to be their kryptonite, who is everybody's kryptonite at this point in time, to be completely honest, because they are running roughshod through the entirety of the league. Nobody can stop Jokic. Nobody can stop Jamal Murray. Nobody can stop that whole team when Jokic is at the helm. It seems almost not even a foregone conclusion, but a very high probability that we'll see them repeat this year with how good they're looking right now. But they, even them, with this Lakers squad at their best, should be able to give them some form of legitimate competition. Going back to when they faced them off in the playoffs, yes, they got swept, but most of the games were close, and they were on a comeback trail in nearly every loss. They were blazing their way back into the games. It was consistently, they would put it within 3 or 4, and then Jamal Murray would hit a dagger, or Jokic would get an and one, or Michael Porter Jr. would hit a clutch 3 off the catch, knowing he ain't going to pass. We all know that Bud ain't going to pass. But the thing is, we've seen this team be able to compete at the highest level. We've seen this team overachieve. And again, we're having our hopes risen about this Lakers squad, with them starting to find some real footing, find some real ground, and with them as a whole looking better and better and better. And there's still some problems, but still, on the all in all, they're starting to figure stuff out. But should we buy into this? That's the real question. Should we buy into what this Lakers squad is doing? Should we buy into these multiple game of the year not contending? Most likely they're going to have a game of the year winner, if we're completely honest. Because they've done so many incredible comebacks this season that shouldn't have happened at all. But they've had so many situations like that where they've looked, when the chips are down, they've looked like they're able to step up. They look like they're able to overcome and achieve. But is it viable that we should buy into what this team is showing us at this point in time? And we should, with a grain of salt. Yes, this team seems like they're finding their footing, but I can't trust them for the entirety of the season. And we've said this before, all because of Darvin Ham. It's all because of him. If it wasn't for Darvin Ham coaching the squad, I would have a lot more confidence in what this team can be. Because again, what they're doing, what they're showing, and when they lock in fully and get in rhythm fully, we see them all of a sudden be an avalanche that no team can seemingly stop. And if they do stop it, it's almost a miracle. It's like by the skin of their teeth with this Lakers squad. This team at its best can go toe-to-toe with anybody in any division, in any conference. It doesn't matter. Any of the top teams. Anthony Davis is playing lights out, has been an enforcer, has been dominant down low, a rebounding machine, a shot blocking machine, able to take away lanes, left, right, and center, and still on the offensive end be dominant and be a go-to threat. With the surrounding cast of support that he has around him, with D'Lo playing phenomenal, insanely above a lot of people's expectations, with him being called to be traded, with the trade deadline coming up, or rather was in talks of being traded. Now, has been so phenomenal with its offensive production. Top to bottom, this team on the whole looks like they can compete. But it's a struggle for me to say that they will be able to by the time the season ends. Because though they're showing that what they can be at their best is something dangerous and lethal, which it is. It is something dangerous for anybody. Problem is when it comes to playoffs, LeBron said it best on his podcast. Coaching and player IQ. That's what separates good from great. That's what separates it. Again, he said player IQ more than anything because of there's things that coaches can't teach. Or there's moments that a coach can't do anything with. It's a matter of the players doing what they can do. But Lakers have shown on multiple occasions, hey, when we need to do it, we can. But the problem is the coach can be the one to sabotage it all, which is incredibly frustrating. It's incredibly ridiculous. And it's stupid that we always have this conversation when it comes to the Lakers. Because with all the good that they look like they can have, with all the bright spots that they're seemingly finding, one man can bring this all down. And it's Darvin Ham. And I hate it. But that's just reality situation. Don't buy into what the Lakers are doing so much. Be mindful. They are real. They can upset a lot of teams. We can very well see them get back into the Western Conference Finals. Again, like they did when they got swept by the Bucks. By the Nuggets. But we could see them back in that same position. Issue is, even if they show that they're able to, and they are equipped to get there. Yes, they are. They have the team and the personnel to do it. When it comes to adjustments, it's always going to be Darvin Ham as the biggest liability on the squad. Bigger threat than player IQ. Bigger threat than players messing up and playing outside of themselves. Bigger threat than anybody on the floor. Darvin Ham for this Lakers organization. It can be the main thing that makes this whole downfall possible. And whatever hope that we have for this Lakers squad to seemingly be and achieve or overachieve in their expectations of what they had this season, Darvin Ham can be the main guy to bring it all down and kill any momentum that they have. And I hate it, but it's just the reality of this team. Hence why, as much as I want to, it's a struggle for me to buy into what this Lakers squad is doing in full and in totality. It really is. But beyond the Lakers and in the NBA, there are other teams that are still making real moves. And other teams that are also having a real downfall. One of those downfall teams has been the Golden State Warriors. We've touched on them before, but more importantly now, more than ever, with the Rockets quickly gaining ground, winning 11 games this season in a row, having an utterly improbable tear. Jalen Green playing like he's got mouths to feed, and he does. If you know, you know. With him recently having a kid. Potentially two more by two other people, but that's a whole other conversation. Not judging anybody's personal life. But he's been playing absolutely phenomenal. And that Rocket squad as a whole has been overperforming and overachieving with what they were this season. Now Golden State's at a real dire dilemma where they could potentially miss the play-in as well. They're close to being eliminated from the playoffs entirely. From the play-in entirely. Many semblance of a shot at another title, gone. It's a real possibility. And it's really spelling that the downfall of the Warriors is now apparent. And it's real. The last vestiges of that championship run are now gone. It's over. Because as much as we love to see Steph Curry do what he wants to do and pull and carry the squad as much as he can, as we've seen LeBron do for the majority of his career, it's not working anymore. Steph can't do it anymore. And that core that the Warriors have had and have relied on is no longer valid to be able to win in this day and age. It's just not. I love and respect Klay Thompson. Ever since that knee injury, he's never been the same. Shootings ain't been the same. Overall offensive output isn't the same. Defensively, he's not the same. And now it's hitting him full force. Don't let the numbers fool you. Yes, he is shooting, almost 40-something% from three. But it's at such an inconsistent rate. How many times have we seen him shoot? 0 for 3, 0 for 8, 1 for 11? Not just from three, but from the field. Have single-digit games as the second best shooter and one of the key offensive components on the squad. The biggest help to Steph Curry to be able to spread the floor. And he's underperformed consistently. Constantly, we're shocked at what we're seeing when it comes to looking at Klay Thompson and his on-court production. It's nowhere close to what it used to be. Seemingly, as the games go on, it gets worse and worse and worse. It's almost surprising because the drop-off has been so rapid. Draymond Green is nowhere near the player that he used to be. Again, his only real contributions to firing his team up has been fouling. Defensively, he has been a complete shell of what he was. Again, with age. Understandable. Offensively, we don't have to talk about it because we already know he sucks and is a bum as an offensive player. We understand he's a bum as an offensive player. Facilitating, hey, he can do that. Absolutely. I'm not saying he's not a core component, but he's so much downgraded as a offensive real proponent. Not just individually, but even in his ability to facilitate. It's not the same. It just isn't the same. Kuminga's been starting to come on, which is great. Andrew Wiggins has been going through some stuff. And again, because of that, we can say that's why his play hasn't been up to par. But let's be real. They only have 4 players scoring above 10 points on the entirety of their roster. It's not great. Steph, Klay, Wiggins, and Kuminga. That's it. Nobody else is scoring more than 10 points on that squad. It is such a big and drastic drop off from what the Warriors of old that we knew and loved or hated. But at minimum respect, understanding how they changed the game and how we viewed the game and how it needs to be played in this day and age. Literally, the entire makeup of teams have changed because of what the Warriors were able to accomplish in their heyday. Steph Curry single-handedly shifting the mindset of how basketball operates in this modern-day game of basketball, in this modern-day NBA. He and this team is responsible for it. But now, they have fallen behind in that very aspect. And they have to retool. They have to retool. They can't go along with this anymore. It's done. A complete rebuild has to be done now. And for an organization standpoint, we can't go on loyalty. You can't if you want to continue to be something in this league. Because at this point in time, you're not anything. You're not a team that looks like they can be or achieve above and beyond where they are right now. Because right now you look bottom of the barrel. You don't look or feel like a squad that really has any forward momentum going for them in the future as well as right now. Picking up Chris Paul did nothing for you. Absolutely nothing. Fending it made your defense even worse. And on the whole, he's not adding anything. Yes, he's getting some assists, understandable. He's not adding anything to what this Warriors squad is able to actually achieve and play up to. It's just a name. On this squad, Chris Paul is just a name. and a non-contributing one at that, relative to what they need from anybody on this squad. It's that we have to say that the dynasty's over. We have to. We've had semblances, we've had talks, we've had discussions, but now we have to solidify it right now. It's got to be solidified. We have to come to grips and say we're done. The Warriors are officially done as a dynasty, as a dominant force in the NBA. And if you want to get back to that or save it in any way, shape, or form, to where you all of a sudden say, oh, lies are lies and we ain't dead at all, you've got to retool fully. You have to retool fully. And you've got to go and do a complete overhaul. That's the only way this is going to work. Because right now it looks in such dire straits for this Warriors organization. It's almost sad. It's almost sad. Watching Steph be frustrated, doing the best he can to drag this team to wherever they can be. And it amounts to nothing in terms of the relative production that this team actually does on a night-to-night basis. No, it's sad. It really is sad. It's horrible. And a shift's got to happen. Because if not, then there's no hope for the squad to, in any way, shape, or form, be the competitive force that they used to be for the totality of their dominant run at the top of the NBA. It just isn't going to work. It's just not going to work at all. But with that being said, as we continue to move forward, specifically last thing on the NBA, specifically with LeBron James and his podcast, one of the biggest things that's happened in the sports world and in the sports media has been LeBron and JJ Redick in Mind the Game, taking the world by storm. 2 million views in their first podcast upload. That's just on YouTube, not to mention on all the other platforms that it's on, Spotify, Google, all that stuff, which you can find this podcast right here as well. Shameless plug. But the point being, with this new, essentially ultimate form of player podcast from NBA stars and former athletes coming in and dissecting the game. You've had Gil's Arena. You've had people like Brandon Jennings who came on, Kenyon Martin, Gilbert Arenas, all of whom were on that squad. Jeff Teague and his podcast as well. You've got a multitude of avenues with players coming in to this podcasting space and making content, giving their own form of opinion, getting a voice, and sharing their voice, which is phenomenal, which is great. But to a degree, it also wasn't great either. Because that discourse, to some degree, turned into kind of what we heard multiple times over the decades with First Take, with Undisputed, with FS1 and other platforms. To a degree, hot takes, to a degree, the downplaying of basketball and all this stuff. Narrative, which is understandable because sports is a narrative-driven thing. I get it. But going to the point that it, to a degree, got ridiculous. Now, all of a sudden, Bron and JJ Redick get into play. It's strictly nothing but ball. And that podcast is a beautiful thing to listen to. If you haven't gotten to listen to it now. They got another episode happening today. I believe it already came out. It's insane. The amount of intricate detail that they're able to go into from one of the greatest minds that the sport has ever seen in LeBron James, with another basketball savant in JJ Redick. Both not tearing down the game, not going through and trying to just say who's better, who's the GOAT, all the stuff that we continually perpetuate on social media and just in the sports medium. They're going in and, like JJ Redick said, to open up the entirety of that podcast. This is for the love of the game. Paraphrasing. This is for the love of the game. We're here to talk ball, plain and simple. Educate and evaluate. That's what that whole podcast is about. And there's so much that we outside the NBA ecosystem in terms of being on the floor that we don't know that they do know. And they actively use that knowledge. They don't just go on rings, accolades. Oh, he's shifty. It's so much deeper than that. Intricate things of the game. Horns plus, horn splits, pick the picker, BOB, all these other terms and terminologies. And these intricate understandings that go beyond just what we normally hear. Teaching what ball is about. Having more in-depth conversations. This is what sports media needs. To make the sports fan smarter. Give them insight into more than just Jordan's the GOAT or LeBron's the GOAT, and if you don't agree, you're a hater. Now going into, this is what makes teams great or not. This is what separates playoff winners from playoff losers. Championship contenders versus championship pretenders. Like he pointed out, the best teams, it's the IQ that will be able to, the coaching and IQ is what sets the best teams apart from everybody else in the league. And specifically, the IQ of the players, like I just said earlier in the podcast when talking about the Lakers, the IQ of the personnel on the floor can really separate things from more than anything else due to them having the biggest effect in the immediate. If the players can adapt on their own and find avenues on their own and have a high IQ on their own without being told what to do, without having to have a play meticulously explained to them, being able to adapt on the fly and do what needs to be done. LeBron brought up how Rajon Rondo, was one of the biggest components as to why they won a championship in 2020 because of his IQ on the floor and his ability to be an on-the-floor coach and change stuff like that and do what needed to be done before anybody else saw it coming. Predict and conquer, react and conquer, all of it done to perfection by Rondo. It's one of the biggest reasons why we saw that team run roughshod through the Western Conference and inevitably through the Miami Heat. That is what those types of conversations are so good, so needed, so vital for the NBA ecosystem and just for sports as a whole. This is what players and fans need to be exposed to. Hopefully, this is what I'm doing on this show as well. But it's a perfect example of how and why, when you go deeper beyond just the hype or just the narrative or just the GOAT debate or whatever other hot take type topic that you discuss, you can find some really in-depth and learned valuable experiences. This is what you fans deserve. This is what any fan deserves. This is what I hope I bring to you when it comes to basketball. A deeper conversation that goes beyond just saying one thing or another. Explaining why. Going through and dissecting the meticulous parts of said question and of said topic. It's a situation that there's an audience for more than just hot takes. There really is. And thankfully with somebody like LeBron and JJ Redick, they're pulling that audience out. They're making that audience viable. They're providing the content that is necessary to teach and grow the game. Push the game forward. Push basketball forward. Give insights more than just this player's bad and this player's good. Helping understand what goes through the thought processes of these athletes that makes them so great. How does LeBron think that makes him do what he does? When did he see that he was this special? What does he do and what does he not like that we consistently see players do? That we now can be aware as to one of the reasons why they are not successful. It's a great thing that we needed to have. That's a long overdue. Kobe did it with detail on ESPN Plus. way ahead of his time. My gosh. Way ahead of his time. And now we have a real platform that is helping to push the game forward. Beyond just talking about ball, they're dissecting ball. They're teaching ball. Helping fans learn. Helping fans grow. Helping them be smarter. Upping the overall IQ of the entire community, which in turn drives more conversations, more nuanced conversations, more diverse conversations, and gives a better frame of thinking to help when we get to those conversations of who's the GOAT, who's better, top 10, and all that stuff. Now, with us being smarter and understanding the game even more, we can now have a better educated argument for whoever side that you're on. That goes beyond just brand influence, goes beyond just shoe sales that somebody sold. Actually stays with the confines of the game without having to put in any outside sources as a means to perpetuate an argument that are null and void, that don't actually add anything. That is what I hope I do for you all on this show. That's exactly what LeBron is doing right now on his show with JJ Redick. It's a beautiful thing. I'm tuning in every week because that I want to learn. You should want to learn. This is something special. Hopefully this continues for a very long time because this is incredibly necessary for the sports world right now. Because in the world of Skip Bayless's and others who could perpetuate either one, hate, or B, incredibly divisive narratives. Keyshawn Johnson, as many of you all have seen most likely, saying idiotic stuff. Consistently seeing a bunch of people go out of the way and say dumb, ignorant things that still drive the persuasion and drive the perception of the public, which is stupid. Now we get somebody who you can't deny what he says because of who he is and what he's done and his legitimate knowledge that he's shown in LeBron James. And somebody else like JJ Redick, who's gone to task with everybody's favorite sports analyst, whoever they may be. Whether it's Stephen A. Smith or Mad Dog or whoever in the world, doesn't matter. Going toe to toe and check people. There's no agenda. There's no precedent to push a narrative. It's just ball, which is great. It's about time audiences got privy to be able to talk about just ball without having to try to sell or disavow, disregard, and absolutely disrespect any other types of talk and or eras and or players of this game. It's a changing landscape, and I'm happy that we got this now at our disposal. This was needed for the basketball community. And hopefully I'll be able to get there one day to have that big of an impact. But I will continue to provide the same level of legitimate analyst and actual conversations, real conversations, when it comes to sports world. Because that is what you all deserve when it comes to the world, not just of basketball, but just in all sports. That's what you deserve. And that's what's needed. And I'm glad it's what we're getting right now. But now that we got the NBA out the way, now moving on into the world of boxing, we have to talk about Romero versus Issac, Cruz, as well as some other stuff going on in the boxing world. So without further ado, it is time to step into the ring. That's right. Ring the bell. Let's get it started. Round one of this segment of the show going underway. Talking about Issac Cruz versus Romero happening this weekend on Saturday, March 30th. Same weekend as Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. So it's going to be a whole night of big fights. I've already given my prediction with Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. I got Tim Tszyu winning by KO. Again, I could be wrong because it could be a real firefight. And he could not be able to get away from that length of Fundora. But again, I got him winning. But on Issac Cruz versus Romero, this is a fight that's incredibly interesting. One, because it should be Barrosos that's in this fight, not Romero defending his WBA title against Issac Cruz. But since it is, with this fight being such a hotly contested affair due to it going to be a firefight. Oh, it's going to be a firefight. You better believe it. It's going to be an infighting agenda on both sides, specifically by Isaac Cruz. How is this fight going to go, and who is going to win? Well, here's how Romero can win in this fight. Because he is so athletic and explosive. Yes, he is. We know this man is a legitimately gifted athlete. Twitchy, fast, powerful, legitimately got some pop to him for all the hate that people want to throw his way. Understandably so. He's a legitimate threat. Yes, he is. We saw what he was able to do to Tank Davis before he got inevitably knocked out. He was giving Tank some good work in that fight. That is undeniable, regardless of what I want to say and how much I don't like Voley. That is true. And so he showed he can compete at the highest of levels. So that experience, coupled with the ability of having real KO power, and this is the biggest thing, with Isaac Cruz being an infighter, somebody who's going to push the pace, he could do what Tank did to him. There you go. He could do what Tank did to him and counter Isaac Cruz for his own viral KO if he in fact is able to lull him into overcommitting. Because he is 5'9" and Isaac Cruz is 5'4". With the height and reach that he has on him, it could see a situation where, hey, he could pull the same trick that Tank pulled on him. Showed that he learned and evolved. And then we could give him some real props, being a real contender, being somebody who is seen as a legitimate threat, who's also been in the ring with the best of the best in Gervonta Tank Davis and put on a league's better performance than Romero did. Went the whole 12. Yes, I understand that Tank was hurt, but still, one-handed Tank still could beat most of the division. That's how good he legitimately is. That is true. Still should prove it by getting in the ring with people. But again, the talent is undeniable. Legitimately one of the best in the world from a talent perspective. So with all of that being the case, we could very well see Romero pull off an upset by KO, even on the big head of somebody like Isaac Cruz. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. And I really feel that we're going to see Isaac Cruz actually knock out Romero. Because understand this when it comes to Voley versus Isaac Cruz. The biggest reason why Voley shouldn't lose this fight is because of the fact that when it comes to pressure fighting, if Voley feels pressured and in trouble, he will not engage. Like we saw against Barrosos. Barrosos, by Romero's own words, was the hardest hitter that he ever faced. Even harder than Tank, in terms just from a sheer power standpoint. Now, it sounds ridiculous when you say that because, hey, one guy knocked you out. The other guy was whooping you, don't get me wrong, but he didn't put you out. He didn't. He knocked you down a couple times, but he didn't knock you out cold. But understand, when you got people like Ali, George Foreman, both saying that Ernie Shavers was a bigger puncher than, again, people like George Foreman, people like Archie Moore, it wasn't because that he was a better fighter, but because sheer power, it was unlike anything anybody else had felt before in the division. That is true. Undeniably true. George Foreman said it himself. Shavers was probably the hardest hitter in the history of boxing. Even bigger than him in terms of power punching. And so that you can be a better puncher or a stronger puncher, and not be as dominant, if that makes sense. Same thing in this fight. Tank is the better tactical puncher. Again, a knockout artist, absolutely. But Barrosos might have more power than Gervonta Tank Davis. In terms of sheer, just studding strength. It could very well be true. And so with that being the case, we've seen him when in terms of if he feels really threatened, he won't engage. He won't get on and try to attack. And if he does feel like, okay, yeah, I can take his power and wants to make a statement, he will overcommit. Romero is a two-sided coin. Both coins go on the over extreme. Both sides of the coin are over extreme. If in fact he is scared of the power, he'll become completely defensive. Absolutely completely defensive. If he isn't afraid of your power, Then he'll go full force on you and overcommit on stuff. Make dumb mistakes. Make dumb decisions. Overextend. Overcommit. Punch when he doesn't need to throw. Put himself off balance. Either way, there are openings and avenues for Isaac Cruz to be able to attack. And in this fight, I can most likely see Romero going into a dogfight with Isaac Cruz, making a statement by fighting him in his own wheelhouse, fighting him in his own domain, fighting him in his own jungle in terms of Isaac Cruz getting on the inside, hooks to the body and hooks to the head. He'll play that same game with Isaac Cruz. He will go there, but it's going to backfire because of the fact that he will overextend. He will overcommit. He'll throw his punches too wide. He will throw his shots on an arc that won't be able to catch up to the tighter arcs and tighter trajectories that we'll see Isaac Cruz throw when he throws those hooks. Isaac Cruz will attack the body. He will go downstairs. He will make it so that Rolly has everything to worry about. And unlike this fight, or unlike his last fight, going up against a substantially taller opponent, again, with him only being 5'4", he's not a towering presence, though he brings a lot of fire to the ring. He is a man in terms of Isaac Cruz, who now when you're fighting somebody even relatively closer to height than what you had to fight in the past, the Romero being, 5'9", and looking a lot closer than we've seen other opponents compared to Isaac Cruz. Yeah, we could see him catch him. We could see him catch him. And with Romero having to punch down on Isaac Cruz, that could lead to some openings due to him not being able to bring his punches up like you would normally bring them up at a relatively even trajectory. More likely to when you're throwing and aiming down, you're really going to be left open for hooks to the temple, hooks to the chin, shots to the body. You're going to be open. And when you're as off balance as Romero can be, especially when he wants to really go for broke, it's a recipe for disaster that Isaac Cruz will be able to capitalize on. Now, I do think that Romero has the ability to knock him out. Yes, he does. Absolutely. Again, get him into a counter window, catch him and end him. It can happen. Understand that Isaac Cruz, while he has an incredibly tough chin, nobody's invincible. Nobody is invincible. And it is absolutely possible that we can see him get knocked out. But I think it's going to be Romero getting knocked out again. This time by Isaac Cruz. Because what we've seen before, this brother can be hurt. And he can be timed. And he can be caught. And he can be put in some serious trouble. Like against Tank, multiple times against Barrosos, a 40-year-old who people are joking around his granddad, nearly ended him. And the fight wasn't stopped egregiously by Tony Weeks in that stupid, ignorant stoppage. When Barrosos was up on the cards, getting aggressive, Romero got aggressive one time, got him to the ropes one time, missed every punch, yet still the fight was called up. I covered that fight before on this channel. Absolutely ridiculous and hypocritical of what a ref is supposed to be. It's stupid that happened. But I digress. We've seen him in that very fight get caught, dropped, and put on his wagon multiple times. To the point that, again, he said he didn't want to mess with the power. He was scared. We could see that same thing happen to Isaac Cruz. When you hook with a hooker, you're going to get done in. You're going to get caught. You're going to get blasted out the way. Especially when you're somebody who relies so much on physical traits as Romero, and not enough on the actual skills and fundamentals of boxing. You are doomed to fail. Going up against somebody who is, again, metastasized, or rather, molded. That's the right word. Molded his entire strategy on working his way inside, and fundamentally understands what to do when he gets there. You try to wrestle him and shake him off like you did against Yiggit, it's not going to work. You try to go and try to out-muscle him, it might not work. We know Romero, again, is a physically gifted specimen. Yes, he is. But it might not work going up against the wall-like strength and sturdiness of somebody like Isaac Cruz. You can see Isaac Cruz being the one to push you off, though he is a smaller man. We could see Isaac Cruz being the one to muscle you around because his center of gravity is so low and he is so stocky. Pitbull personifies exactly what Isaac Cruz is. And all that talk from Rolly Romero could inevitably be shut up in one punch when it comes to Isaac Cruz. It can happen. Absolutely, it can happen. Do not be surprised if you see Isaac Cruz catch Rolly Romero and drop him. Either one good time or multiple times to the point that this fight has to be stopped. Because the biggest thing that I can predict, we see Rolly Romero, because Cruz is a smaller fighter, because Rolly Romero relies on his athleticism so much, and is going to believe that he is going to be the bigger man. He will be. But he believes that he'll be able to fight like the bigger man. He will come in reckless. He will come in guns blazing. He will fight Isaac Cruz's game. And he'll get dropped. And he'll get ended and he'll get knocked out. Now, if he fights with his range and uses his power of straights instead of trying to hook with Isaac Cruz to then catch him with the counter as Isaac Cruz tries to work his way on the inside, now we can see a different story. But I think the pride of Rolly Romero is going to be something that takes over him. It's going to be his downfall. It's going to be the very thing that drives him to the mat, not drives him to victory. I understand that his talent is raw, but good. The issue is pride plus raw talent without technique isn't something that spells a good recipe. Especially when you're going up against somebody who, again, against the highest of talent. The very same talent that you faced in Tank Davis, if you're Rolly Romero, he put on a league's better performance. League's better. Better defensively, more meticulous offensively, gave an above and beyond showing. He understands what it takes. He understands how to not only survive, but to legitimately push his way to near victory. It was a good fight. It was a good fight with him in Tank in terms of Isaac Cruz. Rolly Romero had his moments, but he let himself get reckless. Isaac Cruz didn't do that. Isaac Cruz isn't going to do that in this fight, from what I gather and what I predict. We're going to see Isaac Cruz knock out Rolly Romero. Most likely in 7. But it could be as early as 3. It could very well be as early as 3. But again, I got Rolly Romero losing by KO to Isaac Cruz in this fight. And if that happens, hey, that could set up another rematch for potentially Gervonta Tank Davis and Isaac Cruz again. Which I would love to see. I would enjoy seeing that fight. But this is the real call for Rolly Romero. In terms of your stardom at the top, this fight's going to really prove whether or not you are or are not deserving of that, not only that opportunity again, but the cachet that your name currently brings. Because you're facing an opponent who's faced the same opponent you face. Now, we've seen the results of what happened when you and him face Tank. If you lose to him, now where you are in terms of the totem pole of hierarchy, the food chain of boxing, it's going to be something detrimental, incredibly detrimental for you, if you in fact do lose this fight. It's all on the line. And I expect him to fail. Because I don't think he will be able to let himself control himself when it comes to trying to fight against Isaac Cruz. Because Isaac Cruz will push, and keep on biting and biting. And he will make it so that you will be forced to fight his fight. But for Rolly, it's going to be a completely different story. Rolly will want to fight his fight. Rolly will want to get aggressive. Rolly will want to try to get him out of there. And because of that, on the recklessness on top of the lack of technique, he's going to be overwhelmed and done in when he fights on the inside. I think he's going to be knocked out. That's just my opinion, but we're going to have to wait and see. With that being said, this has been another episode of the Welch Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Again, leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel of everything that we talked, or just subscribe to the channel and share the show with everybody that you know. Comment whatever you thought about whatever I talked about. Give your thoughts on what else you want me to speak on for this show. And we got so much more to cover as the days go by in the world of sports, and we'll be able to cover it all and talk about it all right here on this channel. So again, I've been Jean-Luc Welch. Y'all have been wonderful. Peace and love. We are out of here.